I think for me, growing up, Genesis 1 is the creation story that's always referred to. And so I was never really invited to think about the differences between Genesis 2 and Genesis 1. So I think the inclusion of two Genesis stories invites us out of the obsession over certainty and simply invites us to embrace being and embrace the fact that we're here because we were vibrantly and beautifully created to be. And as God is a spectrum, we are a spectrum, not just a binary.
One of the things that it says to me that we have these two stories, one with male and female and one with an intersex person, and yet the one that kind of gets all the press is the one with male and female, is that it that kind of shows me about the nature of humans is that we really, really like to classify things and to draw some lines that we can really understand and sort, and keeping your arms and your heart open is really what we should be doing.
Having the first human be in one story an intersex person, and in another story a man and then a woman, I think is really beautiful because it shows, to me at least in the way that I'm reading it in this season of my life, that like, one, intersex people exist. That's awesome. And also that in the creation story with a man and a woman, that like partnership is so important as well. And I also think that that could be maybe included in our conversation around like what a spectrum there is in sex and gender, even though only 3 examples maybe exist in like these translations of the creation story.
I think that sort of highlights a relationship between efficiency and wholeness. I think about that in terms of a background in engineering where you're taught to do things because they're efficient. And so save time, save space, save cost, save all of that because it's efficient and it makes good use of resources. And I think it sometimes comes at a cost of somebody who doesn't fit our neat and tidy classification, and be willing to allow something beyond that binary classification, then that's going to result in wholeness, not just for another person, but for whole groups of people and for whole communities. The benefit to the community in pronoun use is that when we are more welcoming to a more diverse group of people, then that means people are really invited not just to be welcome in a space, but to really belong in a space and to be needed in a space. And we're going to have a more diverse community. And so regardless of your own identity and pronoun use, I think we all benefit when our community is more diverse and more broadly reflects the variety of God's creation.
It's also, it seems to me very much in keeping with the Edges community of welcome. We just welcome you all as you are, whether you are he, she, they, whatever your pronouns are, you're welcome. And that seems like something that God would want us to do.
Incorporating pronouns into our introduction at Edges goes hand in hand with how we show love and empathy for transgender and non-binary folks, because doing so normalizes the process of a transgender or non-binary person setting the terms for their identity so that there is no doubt and there is no room for misgendering or anything like that. It simply makes space that is needed for people to be themselves and to be welcomed and embraced for who they are. And that's the core of love and empathy, is for people to be to be allowed to be and to be loved for who they are. Something that I remember from the book study was that the author of the book undertook the challenge of writing the book because they had a son who is transgender, and the way that their son came to the realization that they were transgender was from being asked, you know, what are your pronouns? How do you identify? And we are making space for people to have that revelation, possibly.
And it's a low cost thing for you, right? Like, you can take a couple extra seconds to write your pronouns, and that goes to invite somebody else into a space who otherwise just wasn't going to feel like they were welcome or wasn't going to feel like they belong. So what a tiny little cost to me personally that has a real and meaningful benefit to somebody else.
And I think that we really have to ask ourselves how we can be known for partnering with people who are on this difficult and lonely journey. And often it comes down to the kind of just material needs that they have in order to really fully live as themselves in this world.